Talk presented by Complete Wealth Management, where experience and integrity matters. Thank you so much for tuning in on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. We've got a great weekend of football to recap, a lot of big games happening. Got a good interview this afternoon. We have the NHSA rankings that we will be going over. And then we'll get you ready for Week 7's action. Already on Week 7, the way we look at it in terms of when first games for teams starts, running all the way through. So that's just the way our broadcast coverage, not a lot of broadcasts this year, but that's the way our coverage season works. So we'll get you set for that. Not every team is at Week 7, but we'll talk about some of the other ones. Let's start down in the state of Alabama. We had a barn burner game that I want to talk about right off the bat. It was two unbeaten teams coming in. You had Cornerstone Christian Columbiana coming in. They had played two 11-man games, and then they had the win against Riverside Christian last week. And they headed to Lynette, Alabama to take on Springwood School, who was an undefeated 4-0. Had won several conference games and some non-conference games. They kind of had it rolling. Had a chance to talk to Coach Joey Birch a couple weeks ago. And in overtime, it's Chargers 44, Wildcats 42. What a game. I got a chance to catch some of it over on the NFHS network. By the way, NFHS, you got to get better. Like, I don't know how that system works, but like if I'm going to pay to watch a game on your app, like, at least give me a score. Like, do something. Figure out a way that if on camera someone scores a touchdown and they get a 2-point conversion, something, come on. Or maybe it's up to the home team that has the camera that's putting the game on NFHS. Maybe it's on them. Let's figure out something, because there's several games I was trying to watch on Friday night on NFHS. And just no score. You had to hope for a glimpse of the scoreboard, or to turn the sound all the way up, and maybe the PA guy would say what the score is. So, I mean, we got to figure out something with that, folks. I'm talking to you, NFHS. We got to figure something out, okay? All right, enough said. But I want to look at the stats real quick. I don't think Springwood has put theirs up yet. They have not, but Cornerstone has. So I want to run through these real quick. And someone whose name we said last year, Zeke Adams, had a solid game. Solid game. Had 200 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. On the ground, he contributed 18 carries, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground as well. You had Noah Schober, 3 catches, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. And then over on the defensive side of the ball, Zeke Adams, 23 tackles. I don't know if that number's made up. There's no way that number's made up. Could be. But 23 tackles is incredible. Incredible effort by that young man, that junior. Along with an interception, might I add. So, great showing for Zeke Adams there. And Cornerstone Christian stays unbeaten. Of course, Springwood takes its first loss of the year and a conference loss at that. So a big game there in Lynette in the AISA. Other action in the AISA, you had Southern Prep on the road. They were in Georgia taking on Stewart County. And Southern Prep comes away with the 45-14 win, had a 30-8 lead at halftime, and then tacked another touchdown on each in the third and fourth quarters. Stewart County putting up a touchdown in the second quarter and the fourth quarter. So Fighting Rangers win their second in a row after starting the season on a little bit of a skid. They kind of right the ship and get going. So big win for them. Meadowview Christian was at Evangel Christian Trojans taking on the Lions. And I want to see if I can find this stat, because let's see, because I saw a post. There it is. Okay, so on Max Preps, they have Evangel has put up defensive stats. Okay, so you had Joshua McCoy leading the team with 10 total tackles, 8 tackles. 8 of those were solo. London Belcher with a sack, and then you had some passes defensed. But over on the offensive side of the ball, and I saw this on Instagram, shout out to Evangel Christian's Instagram. I guess it came from their Facebook as well. But senior Daryl Mack finished with the game with 3 touchdowns and 2 two-point conversions. So a big game from the young man. And Evangel Christian Montgomery, who struggled this season, they get their first win of the year after tough games against Evangel Alabaster and Springwood schools. So congratulations to the Lions on the big win. Meadowview continues to look for their first win of the season. Tough little stretch for them. Last AISA team in action on Friday night was North River. They hosted Lighthouse Homeschool Warriors, and the Warriors put up 46 in the first half and then kind of cruised from there. Another touchdown in the third, and North River able to put up a touchdown in the third and fourth quarter. Final score there, 52-12, Warriors over the Chargers. I want to mention Elliot Knowles, just shy of 100 yards passing, but he did have 4 touchdowns. And then he also contributed 56 yards on the ground and a touchdown. In terms of defense, see who led the team in tackles. That would be Clay Boatman, 5 solo, 9 total, along with 2 tackles for loss. A whole slew of Warriors got a sack, and then a fumble recovery for Joseph White, Daley Smith, and Jonathan Snow. A couple forced fumbles as well from Boatman and Snow. So a big, big win for Lighthouse. They stay unbeaten, and it sets up a huge matchup this upcoming Friday night. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Speaking of the ACSC, Ezekiel Academy. We'll talk about Evangel in a second. Ezekiel Academy, they were on the road at Tabernacle. Ezekiel coming off the tough loss to Lighthouse Warriors. At first it was a close game. Lighthouse able to pull away. This time Ezekiel on the road taking on Tabernacle, who's had struggles of their own. Knights able to put up 30 in the first quarter and a touchdown in the rest of the quarters. Tabernacle scoring 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, and that was it. Final score 50-16. You had Brandon Davis with 134 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on 2 carries. So average of 67 yards per carry per each of the carries. And then they both went for touchdowns. Sean Taylor also had a rushing touchdown. Josiah Jones for Tabernacle had a rushing touchdown. He had 21 carries for 64 yards. And then I believe Aaron Peters got a little banged up in the game. And so Jones had to come in and kind of keep that offense going. But up until the point he got hurt, Aaron Peters, until the point he had to leave the game, Aaron Peters, 4 of 10, 47 yards and a touchdown. And then over for receiving for Ezekiel, because I forgot to mention, but 3 different guys had passing attempts: Parker Weston, Mac Mills, and Sean Taylor. Combined, I believe they threw for, let's see if I can get this math right, 85 yards, 177 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Avery Askew, 4 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown. And then on the defensive side of the ball for both, let's see, you had Blackburn leading the Torches with 6 tackles. You had Emmanuel Grant leading Ezekiel with 10 tackles, 5 of those being solo. He also contributed 2 tackles for loss. And then you had some passes defense and a forced fumble from Noah Jones. So a big, big win there for Ezekiel Academy in Alabama. The other ACSC game happening, East Central taking on Southern Christian, so a conference game. Patriots from Pinson over the Patriots from Opelika, 40-0. So big win for East Central. Southern Christian moves to 1-2 on the season. Last ACSC team in action was Evangel Christian. They were in Huntsville taking on the Freedom Cowboys. Big rivalry game always. And I do want to give a shout-out to Freedom's side. Evangel's broadcast having a little bit of issues with their power for the camera, kind of roughing it through the first half, calling it radio style. And a big shout out to Freedom's side, despite the circumstances, helping them out with the power cord and kind of contributing to get the broadcast back to full strength. So big shout out to those guys, everybody working together, making it happen for these kids. So big kudos to you guys. Did want to share that kind of behind the scenes story a little bit, and a big shout out to Evangel's crew for just keeping it moving. Saying, hey, this is what we got to do right now. We're going to make it work. So big shout out to everyone involved. But for Evangel, Kemp Swords, 10 of 13, almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then you had Zion Thompson with 2 catches for 152 yards, so averaged 76 yards per catch, and a touchdown on both of his catches. Then Clay Stanton, the same thing, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, and he averaged 57 yards on both of his touchdowns. In terms of defense, you had Clay Stanton, again, leading the team in tackles with 12, 7 of those being solo, and 5 tackles for loss. Cole Romano with 2 sacks. Clay Stanton again, 2 sacks. And Reed Castleberry with a sack of his own. Zion Thompson comes away with 4 interceptions on the day. Caleb Austin had 1 and also had a forced fumble. So a big showing there for Evangel. They stay unbeaten, and they move to 6-0 as well. And if you remember earlier, I said that another team moved to 6-0. We'll talk about that matchup a little bit later on in the show. Let's jump down to the state of South Carolina. Talk about a little SIFA action. And right off the bat, a couple inner SIFA games happening. Coastal Hurricanes, they were at Victory Christian, the Vikings, and Hurricanes come away with a 28-20 win. Very, very close, but a big win for them. And then Pack Panthers, they were on the road up here in Tennessee. They were in East Tennessee and Bluntville, taking on Tri-Cities Christian. This was a big interconference matchup. Tri-Cities kind of looking to be on the rise. Pack Panthers having a great season so far, unbeaten in conference play. And then they did have the close loss to Lighthouse earlier in the year. Pack Panthers, though, just smothered the Eagles, 56-0. So a very successful business trip, road trip for the Panthers. And for the Eagles, they moved to 2-2 on the season. The other SIFA game happening in our conference game again, Augusta Eagles and Harvest Christian. It was the Eagles and the Hawks. They were squaring off in Cope, South Carolina. And the Eagles get the 30-12 win. They had a 24-12 lead at the half. And then they were able to tack on a touchdown in the fourth quarter. No scoring from Harvest in the second half. And so I'll run through these stats real quick for Augusta. 9 carries, 53 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Eli Petit. And then you had KJ Holmes with a touchdown catch of 17 yards. And on defense, Nathaniel Reese, former Defensive Player of the Week, he again stepped up for his team. 9 total tackles, 7 of those being solo. You had Ethan Thompson with 4 tackles for loss. And a whole slew of guys contributing sacks and half sacks and hurries. Peter Wilson with 4 hurries led the team. And then a couple fumble recovery from Burks Bell, a forced fumble from Ethan Thompson, and a couple passes defensed by that Eagles defense. So a big, big win for Augusta. They stay unbeaten at 5-0. So Providence, the Pack Panthers, they are 5-1, 5-0 in play after Gatlinburg, and then Augusta, they are 5-0. So that matchup's coming up here in a couple weeks, and it's going to be a huge collision. Let's jump to, speaking of the Pack Tri-Cities game, Pack does have some stats on here, and I want to run through them real quick. Between Cam Humans and Jance Lamb. Of course, Jance Lamb playing quarterback. Didn't have to do a whole lot at quarterback. And in terms of running the football, Jance Lamb, 27 carries, 187 yards, and a touchdown. Cam Humans, 9 carries, 156 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Big game from both of those young men. You had Cam Humans again. He led the team in tackles, 10 total, and 3 tackles for loss. You had sacks from McNulty and half sack from Burns and Lehman. And then you had the interception from Reinhardt. So some and a forced fumble from Humans as well. So a lot of young men that you heard about in Gatlinburg at the kickoff weekend, definitely contributing in these games. And you love to see it. Let's jump down to the state of Louisiana. Acadiana Christian. They took on Thursday, they took on First Baptist Christian. And Acadiana does have some stats on Max Preps. Want to run through those real quick. Their quarterback, Ty Olivier, 5 of 5, 182 yards and 3 touchdowns. Lions, the Acadiana, the Lions, they did get the win over First Baptist Christian. The Eagles, 68-0. But the quarterback, 5 of 5, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then you had several young men with a receiving touchdown, Lanclo, Osborne, and Judas. And then in terms of defense, you had, let's see, who led the team on defense? It'd be kind of a tie between Olivier, Broussard, Wild, and Wilder, each with 5 tackles, and then Peltier with an interception. So big win for Acadiana Christian, and they moved to 4-1, as well as John Paul the Great High School now, or John Paul the Great Academy. Now on Max Preps, the North Shore Vultures, who were 2-3 at the time, and John Paul the Great, who is 4-0. There's still a score, I believe. Let me double check this. There's a score out there from John Paul the Great that has not been put into Max Preps. So they could have been 5-0, potentially going. Nope, that score did get put in. Okay, so 48-6 win. So they were 4-0, and then on Max Preps it says that the North Shore Vultures got a forfeit win. So I'm not completely sure what the story is there, but I am trying to look into it and figure out what might have happened. Couple other games I wanted to talk about in couple different states. I wanted to jump to Georgia real quick. A lot of blowout games there and a lot of big wins. But you had Unity Christian out of Rome taking on Lafayette Christian out of LaGrange. And this was actually a really good game. Unity Christian had a 24-0 lead at the half. Lafayette came back, scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, so now it's 24 to 16 at the end of the third quarter. Unity puts another touchdown up. They're at 30-16 in the fourth quarter. And then Lafayette, Unity was actually driving to kind of wrap the game up. They end up turning the ball over on downs. Lafayette comes back and scores, I believe, let's see, how long of a touchdown? It was a 40-yard touchdown pass. And so it made the score 30-22. And Lafayette Christian, I'm assuming, was unable to get the onside kick attempt. So Unity Christian holds on to win 30-22. Sounds like that was a fun game. And then in Virginia, Kinston Forest High School taking on Blessed Sacrament. Cavaliers and Knights. Cavaliers from Kinston Forest, they get the win 20-12. And I don't have a box score, but I do have some stats, and I wanted to run through those real quick. Zane Queen from Kinston Forest, 22 carries, 141 yards, and a touchdown. Devin Dunn had 15 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown. And then Ben Height led the team in tackles with 9 tackles, tied with Cale Boyd with 9 tackles as well. So it sounds like it was a fun game there in Virginia. A couple games to run through real quick. We're going to go backwards on this one. Tennessee Heat, they were on the road in Jackson, Tennessee yesterday, taking on Sacred Heart of Jesus High School, and Heat come away with a 54-26 win. It was a close one at the half. It was 30-18, and then Tennessee Heat able to pull away in the third quarter, put up 2 touchdowns, and then a touchdown from each in the fourth. And then the last game I want to talk about on Friday night, it was Franklin Classical School. They were on the road in Columbia taking on Zion Christian. Classical did not start out the year great, had the loss to Christian Community, but they kind of righted the ship, and they ended up taking the win and getting the shutout as well over the Eagles, 30-0, and that brings me to getting on special guest for today. Let me get him queued up here.
Hello.
Joining me now is the head coach of the Franklin Classical School Knights, Coach Steve Adams. Coach, I appreciate you joining me.
Hey, James. Good to be on with you, man. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right, let's back it up, Coach. This season did not start the way you guys wanted it to. You go to Christian Community, big rivalry game, long rivalry game, and the result wasn't what you guys wanted. And obviously, all the work you guys put in during the offseason, that can kind of almost derail a season in a way. What were some of the biggest things you and your coaches were trying to communicate to the guys? Because obviously since then, you guys have been able to kind of right the ship a little bit and do some things the right way. Maybe not completely the way you wanted to, but you've been able to reel off 3 straight wins here. What were some of the things that you and your coaches were trying to communicate to the guys?
Well, first of all, anytime you go play, Coach Flanders up there, I went up there, I don't know, that several years back. I had a senior heavy team, and they laid it to us pretty good, man. So they're a really good team up there, and I go in there with a lot of new guys, a lot of guys that haven't played football at all. I get a brand new starting quarterback, so yeah, the results were definitely not what we wanted. I actually thought that we physically played pretty well, but just a lot of first game mental mistakes is what really killed us. So we knew more or less, what to do with that to go forward, and just, hey, we got to work on a lot of the mental stuff and get the little details fixed, quit making all of the mistakes that, gave them a short field and gave them a chance to score quickly on us. And before we knew it, it was out of hand. But yeah, it's pretty obvious my guys have done that mentally, turned it around. And while we're still, 4 games in and we have reeled off 3 in a row now, as a coach, I think I told him after the game the other night, I said, hey, we won this game. That's what we came here to do. And I think, as a coach, you'd say, I told my kids that if I won the championship game, I'm sure I would say we could have done better. We can get better.
Right. Now, you guys, the game against Innovation, kind of a quick turnaround in terms of getting that game scheduled. You guys are able to get the win in that one. How much of a confidence builder and confidence booster was that for your guys? Because then you turn around and have a week off. And so, it seems like that Innovation game was really a chance for your guys to build a little bit of confidence and momentum going into a conference portion of the schedule.
It was, and it was a blessing for us, because both of us, Innovation, I think they were thinking they had the game with Lighthouse schedule. There was some miscommunication there, so we were able to fill in that void, and it was perfect for us because instead of having 2 weeks to sit out, we got to play a game, and it was going in there, and man, listen, they've got a great field up there. They've got some good facilities, and I think they're going to do some really good things in the future. So I was glad we got to go play that game. And again, they're a pretty new program, and we were able to do some really good things. And some of my athletes were able to get loose and score some points. So we had fun with that one. And yeah, we built off of that and into the bye week, and we're able to add in some new stuff on offense and defense and put guys in place. That's the other thing. Anytime you got new kids that haven't played a lot of football, you're thinking, well, yeah, this guy's going to be our linebacker. And then, after a game or whatever, you're like, nah, he might be a better defensive end or whatever, safety, whatever it might be. So that helped. Anytime you can get on the field and these kids can get reps, they're getting better. I tell them that every play. you're getting a rep and you're getting better. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, that and anytime you get a chance to hit someone that's not your teammate, I think you approach it a little bit differently, in terms of your preparation. But you guys had the win against Innovation. You have the week off, and then you have the big game with Sacred Heart, first home game of the year. And it's obviously it's a close game. It's a tough game. It's kind of one of those gut games where it seems like you were able to find out what your team was made of. The earlier in the year, the loss to Christian Community, okay, first game of the year, Innovation, okay, we're kind of getting. It seems like you were really able to figure out what your team was made of in that Sacred Heart game.
Well, like I said, I felt like even against CCS that we did not get beat up physically. I felt like we mentally did not do well, and then against Innovation, I think we played well, and we played well both ways, mentally and physically. And then, listen, man, anytime you're gonna play Sacred Heart, you know what you're gonna get. They're gonna have some big guys. They're gonna line up and they're gonna run the ball at you. So I was very proud of my guys that we're not the biggest team out there, and my guys, man, we did not back down and physically, stood the challenge. And while coaches and I at halftime, we were like, man, I don't think we punted the whole game. So we were not doing a lot of really good things on offense, but we would kind of go, 20 yards forward and 10 yards back. So I felt like we left some points there that we should have had. But the physical game part, I was glad to see my guys withstand that test, and that was good for us. And it's going to, going forward with teams like Tennessee Heat and Freedom Cowboys coming down the line, that's going to be a good experience for us to build on.
And you mentioned those games. You guys, obviously, you get the big win Friday night against Zion. You get the shutout win. So now your defense knows, hey, we can pitch a shutout. But now you go into a stretch of games where you mentioned it's the Tennessee Heat. It's Freedom Cowboys. Both those teams played for a conference title last year. You guys played Freedom in the playoffs. And then on the back end of that, you got Tri-Cities, who, that game last year, it came down to that game for a playoff spot. So 3 games coming up where you guys really don't have a lot of wiggle room. Do you get a sense from your team that they understand the situation you guys are in?
Well, again, we're very young as far as football experience.
Yeah.
So 4 games in, I think they've learned a lot. And as coaches, it's always the one game at a time, and no game is more important than the other. But let's face it, Tennessee Heat, like you said, they played for the championship last year. They're on our side of the conference, and so obviously it's a big game for us. And we didn't do that well last year. We went up there to their place, and they pretty much took it to us. So we know what to expect. We know what we're going to get, and we're just hoping that we can build on what we've done so far, and get in there, to come into our place. It's going to be homecoming, and we're going to have a big crowd and a lot of things going on. So, man, I'm excited for it. My kids are really excited about it, and as far as going, our defense, man, we've really, since the CCS game, I think we've only given up, I think
20 points, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, right. So our defenses are really, we got a lot of good speed on the defensive side. Got 2 really good defensive ends, and just Nolan Connor, Riley Costello. Those guys are playing lights out for us. And like I said, we've been putting some guys in different places, linebacker and safety and corner, just moving guys around. And so I think it's starting to happen for us on the defensive side. We've just got to, like I said, iron out those details on offense. And I've got a lot of new guys up front, and they're doing great. They're learning every week, and they're doing a great job for us. So
you mentioned Riley, and I wanted to mention Oak as well, Cardi. 2 guys that they're not obviously Oak's a senior, and Riley's been around for a minute, so it seems like they're somewhat the leaders of the team, or maybe there's other guys. But I wanted to give you a chance to shout some of those guys out because obviously the opposition you guys went through to the offseason, you do lose 2 guys that you were counting on being big contributor, 3 guys really. You were counting on being big contributors, but I want to give you a chance to shout out some guys that maybe have stepped up, even since the first game, and have really taken that leadership role, and have really, or maybe somebody that came out of nowhere that you say, man, I'm really glad he's figured some stuff out.
Yeah, well, those 2 for sure. I mean, we knew what we had in Riley. Riley's been, he played as a freshman, and then he's been there. He's a junior this year, and we knew for what we had in him. I mean, the kid's got a great motor. He's a he's a very aggressive player. And then Nolan Connor came along, and he was one of the surprise guys. I mean, we knew he was a big, strong, long, athletic kid, but to be able to learn the game as quickly as he has and to play that position has been great. And then my offensive line, I mean, those guys have never played football. And I've got two brothers, which are, by the way, they're cousins with Roland, and I mean, with Nolan, and they are Connor brothers, and they're my center and guard, and they've never played football. And those guys have just, and I mean, just the leaps and bounds they've made um, since the spring when they joined us.
Yeah.
And I've got to give a shout out because, we were able to co-op with Lighthouse with Coach Hollis, who I've known,
Yep.
and
Yep.
he and I go way back. And man, he's made a huge difference in coming over, not only with some kids, but with him helping me coach on the offensive line side. So he's made a big difference there. I got to give him a shout out. And then my starting quarterback, he started his first game against CCS, and then unfortunately he hurt his back and missed the two games after that. So he missed a lot of reps. But then the other night he went in and he can made a few errors here and there, but overall controlled the game. Had a really good touchdown run at the end and a 2-point conversion run. So he's starting to get a good feel for what I'm trying to do on offense. And of course my captains, Caleb Manning and Cole Greer, those guys, they're leaders, and I'm really proud of what they bring to the team. And Oak, he's there, and he has a couple of good runs and catches the other night. So, again, man, we're just starting to find out who we are, what we got, and now we're getting into the meat of it, and hopefully we can get some victories.
I love the fact that when you guys co-opted with Lighthouse, Coach Hollis was able to come over and contribute on the coaching staff. Obviously, you've got a couple of other young men that are former players that have come back. One of them from Mississippi. Another one is a classical alum, Eli Cornett.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's somebody that was able to jump in. He's able to communicate with the guys, on a younger level, but also I feel like he's been able to show them, hey, I know what I'm talking about. And it seems like Friday night was a huge step forward for him as a defensive guy, in terms of being able to shut down an offense.
Yeah, I mean, Eli's, he's that guy with a lot of energy, and he's hungry. He wants to learn, and yeah, just from last year to this year, he's made a huge leap, and as far as just his maturity as a coach, and yeah, shout out to him because he did a great job for us the other night. And then Coach Franklin, who the guy you're talking about from Mississippi,
Right, right.
he's not the rah guy, but he's another young, hungry guy that knows the game really well. He runs my offense on the middle school side, and he's right there beside me during the game. So we're always talking about what's working, what's not working, and what we need to run. So, yeah, I mean, as a coach, you got to have those guys helping you, and I've got some good ones, man.
This past off season, you guys doing your workouts and your spring practice and even training camp. I want to compare that to the first year because I think we talked last year here on the show, and the situation was a little bit different. You were coming into a program that had not had a lot of success the last couple of years, and historically, Classical is a good team.
Hmm.
Hadn't had a lot of success over the last couple of years, and so when you came in, obviously you knew you had your hands full. But going into this past off season and kind of the attitude around the program, what were some of the differences between the two seasons that you felt, or a direction you'd try to work with the guys and you saw it kind of paying off?
Well, obviously the expectations. I mean, you had guys coming back like a Caleb Manning, like a Riley Costello, guys that had played, before I got there, and then now they've had a year under their belt seeing the way we were going to do things, and they just took that and ran with it. And so, prior to me coming, I think there was a lot of that going on, and so I think they really ate that up. Man, these kids they want to work out. They want to get bigger, they want to get stronger, they want to get faster. So for me, I think it was just getting it organized and pushing those buttons and getting them to, hey, we can do this, we can be a good football team. And here we are, 4 games in, and we've already equaled our win total from last year.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a great sign. These kids are believing in it. They know we can go out there, we can play some great defense, hopefully score enough points on offense, and like I said, get that ball rolling better, and we're going to be all right, I think. So that's the main difference. Just anytime you have a year under your belt, it's something to build on, and the expectations are set. Hey, here's what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to be a part of that, then you probably need to do something else. And so, I'm a little bit old school, but I'm trying to mix in the new school. And I'm like everything else, man. I'm always growing, trying to learn, trying to do new things with these kids. And so far we're having a great time, and looking to build on it some more.
Got a little Bayou in you.
Oh yeah,
Got a
well,
little bit.
it was a good weekend. We won Friday night, and
Oh
my
yeah.
Tigers won yesterday. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
that's always a good thing.
Hey, I wanted to ask to kick the season off. You guys made 2 trips up to Robertson County, about an hour for you guys. But after this game this weekend with Tennessee Heat, you guys go on the road to Huntsville, which is about an hour
Yeah,
and a half, and then you
right.
guys go to Tri Cities, a little bit longer trip. In terms of the road games and maybe the ones that are just a little bit longer, what's your philosophy in terms of keeping your guys loose, keeping your guys ready to play? Is there anything special that you guys do? Because there's a lot of teams that do have to, the trip you guys have to Tri Cities, that's like a normal every season kind of deal where they have to make one or two of those trips. So I'm always interested in how do coaches keep your guys loose, keep your guys involved, and kind of not let them kind of dream or lose focus a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think they said something yesterday on the broadcast in the LSU game that Brian Kelly, they stopped off at a car dealership and got out and walked through and stretched. And so I've not tried that trick yet, but hey, man, I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, yeah,
But as far as away games go, especially for us, we're such a small school, and we have a kind of a small bus. We'll take on the shorter trips, but generally we end up taking individual vehicles. So it's a matter of once we all, I try to get them there at a certain time and then get them together. And then my big thing is just, I think the kids sense the coaches. If you as a coach are feeling nervous or uptight or all worried, I mean, listen, man, you've put in the work all
yep,
week long.
yep.
And I tell them that. I say, now it's time to have fun. Now it's time to let's go out there, let's play hard, let's play fast, and let's go do it. So I just kind of try to keep it loose with them. Not too loose, but loose enough to where they know, hey, coach is relaxed, everybody's good. Let's go out here and have fun with it.
Um, I mentioned Classical having a kind of a history of being good, and the so many alum that you guys have, and obviously some of them will be back this weekend for
Yep.
homecoming, and how much of a role has it been with you trying to get, or how much have you tried to get alumni in, or maybe get some of them to talk? Obviously, we mentioned you got Eli there coaching,
hmm
but there's a lot of really good alum that I feel like if you could get them there and get them talking to the guys, or maybe just even get them in the stadium and have those guys look at the guys that came before them. It seems like the alumni could play a huge role in the success of the team.
Yeah, and I hope they're listening and are listening to this in the future. And that's always a big deal for me. Is former players, man, are more than welcome. And we've reached out to several of them, of course, Isaiah, Austin, and
Yep,
then you remember back in the All-Star game when I got to coach the All-Star game, I ended up with all of the Classical guys on my team,
yep, yep.
which was Josh and Sam Hubbard and those guys. So I had,
Jonah Rorchi.
yeah, they had a really good team that
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
And that was their, matter of fact, they beat me in the last game. I believe it was 2019. Their defense was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I,
man, and we've had some guys come to our games, and we've reached out, and hopefully with homecoming coming up, we're going to have a good turnout and have these guys. And they're, like I told them, they're more than welcome. Come down on the sideline, and many of them have. They come up to me, said, "Hey, coach, glad you're here." And glad to see what you're doing with the program. So it's been a good thing. We just hope to keep building on it.
I think I've told you my favorite story from that All Star game was the draft, and you got the first pick in the draft via, I think it was via a coin toss, and the first pick you had was Josh Austin, and the
Sure.
first thing you said is, "Man, it's nice to not have to coach against you for once."
That's right, dude. Because I
I
mean,
don't think these young guys realize how good some of these older guys were back in the day. But
no,
that Cole Warren to Isaiah Austin or Josh Austin combination,
Yeah,
That was
that kid.
that
He
was
was he
deadly.
was a special player, man. And so there was no doubt who I was taking first with that draft.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, you guys have a good little stretch coming up in front of you, but it seems like it could really battle harden you guys and get you guys ready for a playoff run. I'll let you go. I'll let you go ahead and get ready for this weekend. I appreciate you joining me, and good luck this week.
Thanks, James. And again, man, I've known you now for, I don't know, going on 8 or 9 years, and I tell you this all the time, but I really do mean it, and I appreciate everything you do for the sport because people need to know that this is real football, and that these kids, they go out there every Friday night and give it everything they have, and so they need all the support they can get, and you do a good job with that, and I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Coach. Good
All right,
luck this
buddy. We'll talk
weekend.
to you again.
All right,
All
we'll
right.
see you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. That's Coach Steve Adams from Franklin Classical School, and good to see the turnaround they've been able to have. He mentioned they've already, I believe he said they've already matched the win total from last year. And in previous years, there wasn't a whole lot of success. I think they maybe won one game in 2 years. Yeah, three wins last year. One against Zion, one against Sacred Heart, and one against Tri-Cities, and then they lost to the Heat and Freedom, which the first Freedom game was close, 22-6. And he mentioned Tennessee Heat got a big win, 40-0 over them. So big stretch coming up for Franklin Classical School, and we'll keep an eye on them. Right now, I want to jump to the rankings. The NHSA rankings. I have gotten a hold of them. I'm not sure. Let's see. Let's see if I got the exclusive. See if I got the exclusive or if I already posted them. No, they have not. So here are your exclusive. Here's your exclusive release of the NHSA rankings. Evangel Christian from Alabaster, they stay at number 1 at 6-0. Franklin Christian Academy, they're actually 5-0. Let me double check that because I don't think their win against Christian Community is on Max Preps. Let me double check this real quick. Let's see. Yeah, I think they're 4. Let's see. No, they are 4-0. Had the win against South Haven, and then they were off this past week. So factoring in the win against Christian Community, they are 4-0. Lighthouse Warriors, they are at number 3, also at 6-0. Christian Community School out of White House, they're number 4 at 4-1. Pack Panthers at 5-1. Jacksonville Christian at number 6 at 5-0. Fort Wayne King Crusaders out of Indiana, they are number 7 at 3-1. Ezekiel Academy is at 3-1 at number 8. Cornerstone Christian Columbiana, they are 4-0 and they are at number 9. And then Springwood rounds out the top 10 at 4-1. So of course Springwood, the loss to Cornerstone, that's why they're below them. You have Christian Community at number 4. They lost to the number 2 team. And then you have Pack Panthers at number 5. They lost to number 3. So that's your top 10. Freedom Cowboys at number 11 at 2-2. Tennessee Heat at number 12 at 3-3. John Paul the Great out of Louisiana at number 13. They are 4-1. South Haven Christian at 14. They are 4-2. East Central at 15, 3-1. Grace Academy at 16 at 2-2. Russell Christian out of Meridian, Mississippi, they are at 17, 2-2. And Tuscaloosa Christian as at number 18, they are 2-2 as well. And then Augusta Eagles out of Georgia, they are at number 19, and they are 5-0. It says 4-0. I believe they're 5-0. Acadiana Christian out of Louisiana, they are at number 20 at 3-1. Franklin Classical is at number 21 at 3-1. Lancaster Christian is at number 22 at 1-4. Now their losses have all come to teams above them. So a solid, a group of losses there to good teams. Southern Christian, The Southern Christian Patriots at number 23 at 1-2. Tabernacle Christian is at 0-3. Their losses coming to teams. I believe they're all in the top 10, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Jacksonville, Ezekiel, and Lighthouse. And then Zion Christian rounds out the top 25 at 2-5. And of course, all the other teams ranked from 26 to 42. Cornerstone Christian Rainsville is at 31 at 2-3. Coastal Hurricanes out of Georgia are at 37 at 2-2. So, your top 10 again: Evangel Christian, Alabaster, Alabama; Franklin Christian out of Franklin, Tennessee; Lighthouse Warriors out of Oneonta, Alabama at number 3; Christian Community at number 4 out of White House, Tennessee; Pack Panthers at number 5 out of South Carolina; Jacksonville Christian at number 6 out of Jacksonville, Alabama; Fort Wayne King Crusaders out of Indiana at number 7; Ezekiel Academy out of Montgomery at number 8; Cornerstone Christian Columbiana at number 9; and Springwood at number 10. So there are your top 10 NHSA teams. All right, let's talk about the games coming up this weekend. Let's get Max Preps opened up. And let's start. Let's see. We'll start over in the AISA. North River Christian on the road at Cornerstone Christian Columbiana. North River coming in at 1-3. Cornerstone at 4-0. Ezekiel Academy 3-1. They are staying in Montgomery to take on Evangel Christian, who is 1-2 coming off that win against Meadowview Christian. Southern Prep, speaking of Meadowview, they are at Meadowview. Southern Prep at 2-3, Meadowview at 0-4. And then Springwood, they are at Southern Christian. Springwood at 4-1, coming off the loss to Cornerstone, and Southern Christian at 1-2. So all 6 AISA teams in action this weekend. Let's skip over to the CFA. I did neglect to mention, and I apologize, a couple of the CFA scores. Cornerstone Christian, Rainsville got the win over Success Unlimited 48-12. And Tuscaloosa Christian eked out a win over Russell Christian 22-14. Big win for the Warriors there. And then on Friday, the other one I did not mention was Jacksonville Christian getting the shutout win over Victory Christian 47-0. Now, games coming up this weekend in the CFA. Jacksonville Christian, it's a rematch of the championship from last year. They are on the road at Russell Christian. Mississippi Phoenix Sports Academy, the MPSA Phoenix, they are at Victory Christian this upcoming Friday night. Success Unlimited on the road at Tabernacle. Success at 1-4. Tabernacle at 0-3. I want to back up real quick. I mentioned MPSA Phoenix out of Ridgeland, Mississippi, playing an independent schedule. On the NHSA rankings, they are currently number 33, and they had a forfeit loss to West Memphis Christian a couple weeks ago, and then a win over Heritage Christian on this past Thursday night, 21-0. So, anyways, Tuscaloosa Christian on the road at Cornerstone Christian Rainsville. Tuscaloosa at 2-2. Cornerstone Christian at 2-3. So it's a big CFA game. 3 interconference games, all 7 teams in action this weekend. Let's skip over to the ACSC. And I mentioned, I've teased it. I'll talk about it here in a second. I mentioned Ezekiel Academy at Evangel Christian Montgomery. I mentioned Springwood at Southern Christian. And then the big game. Lighthouse, Evangel, both 6-0, and both will be meeting in Alabaster. This is a huge game. If there was a game of the week, this would be game of the week. These two teams went to Gatlinburg. They both got wins. They have cruised through their season so far, and this one's going to be a big one. I would not be surprised if this is a preview of the championship game in the ACSC. This is going to be a big one. Number 1 versus number 3. It's going to be huge. Huge. Let's skip over to the TSI AA on Thursday night. South Haven Christian, they are hosting Tennessee School for the Deaf, and I have completely forgotten to mention Tennessee School for the Deaf. Last Thursday, big win over South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind, 68-28. The Vikings are 2-0, heading into Springfield on Thursday. The Patriots from South Haven, meanwhile, they are 4-2, so a 6 o'clock kickoff for that game on Thursday. And on Friday, Freedom Cowboys, 2-2. They are headed to Franklin Christian, who is 4-0. Freedom and Franklin Christian, always a big, big rivalry matchup game. I'm surprised this game is being, let's see. Nope, this game was played in Huntsville last year. So the game being played in Franklin this year. Big matchup between those two. Got to see a little bit of a preview of it during the FCA Jamboree earlier this season, first weekend of August. Innovation Academy, they are on the road at Christian Community, who is 4-1. Innovation now 0-3. Big Robertson County matchup there. Grace Academy, they are on the road at Zion Christian to take on the Eagles. Grace coming off an 11-man win against the Kings Academy, and 28-21, I believe, was the final score there. So 2 11-man wins for the Eagles, and they've taken 2 8-man losses, one to Franklin Christian and one to Christian Community. So kind of a little bit of a different season for the Golden Eagles. They get ready to take on the Eagles of Zion. They're in Columbia. Lancaster Christian, they are on the road in Jackson, taking on Sacred Heart of Jesus High School. I believe that game actually got moved to Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. Lancaster coming in at 1-4, Sacred Heart at 0-2 after losing 2 tough games, a close one to Classical, and then a somewhat of a close one to the Tennessee Heat. Talked about that a little bit before the interview with Coach Adams. Let's jump over to the SEEC. Have a big game coming up on Friday night that we mentioned earlier. Tennessee Heat 3-3, Franklin Classical 3-1. They're getting ready to they'll square off in Franklin at Freedom Intermediate School. It's a big divisional game in the SEEC North, and Tennessee Heat coming in with the 1 win over Tri-Cities. Franklin Classical has not played a divisional game yet. They'll play Tri-Cities here in a few weeks. So a loss here to Franklin Classical would mean that Tri-Cities Classical game is, once again, for that playoff spot. Now, if Classical can get the win over the Tennessee Heat, now the Heat would be 1-1, Classical would be 1-0, and Tri-Cities is 1-1. And then if Tri-Cities can get the win over Classical, all 3 teams are tied at 1-1, and it'll go through the tiebreaker scenarios that have been laid out in the SEC guidelines. And just a refresher of those real quick. It is conference record, which it'd be 1-1, 1-1 for each. Head-to-head game result. So there would be that. And then result versus cross-divisional opponent. Each team has a cross-divisional opponent. For the Tennessee Heat, it's Sacred Heart. For Franklin Classical, it's Zion. And for Tri-Cities, I believe it's Zion as well, because I don't think they're playing. I don't think they play Sacred Heart or Freedom. So Tri-Cities got the win over Zion, Classical got the win over Zion, and he got the win over Sacred Heart. So at that point, it would move to a point differential tiebreaker with a 20-point cap. So this could get interesting between in that division in the SEC North. We'll have to see what happens with the Tennessee Heat Franklin Classical School game. It could be very interesting, the ramifications of that game. Let's jump to South Carolina. Talk about games happening on Friday night. There's just one on Friday night. It's Pack Panthers coming in at 5-1. Orangeburg Christian coming in at 0-3. And then on Saturday, Harvest Christian. They are on the road in Pembroke, Georgia, to take on the Coastal Hurricanes. Harvest at 1-3. Coastal at 2-2. So that'll be a big, big matchup in the SIFA. Going to Louisiana on Thursday, John Paul the Great. They are on the road at First Baptist Christian. John Paul the Great at 4-1. First Baptist at 0-5. And then you also have the North Shore Vultures at 3-3. They are on the road at Acadiana Christian, who is 4-1. And then on Friday, Southwest Louisiana Homeschool, SWLA, 3-2. They are on the road at Mount Olive Christian at 1-3. So a big matchup there in the ACEL, the Christian Educators of Louisiana. I don't remember what the A stands for. I apologize. But big game there in Louisiana. Let's jump to North Carolina. And I neglected again to mention some of these scores. Some of the ones that jump out to me: Berean Baptist, Liberty Christian. Berean got a 84-34 win. Lawrence Academy 75-40 over Hobgood Charter. Rocky Mount went over Arundel Parrott, who is the defending champions, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check myself. But I believe Arundel Parrott are the defending champs. Yes, they are the defending champs. So that's a big win for Rocky Mount Academy. They are 3-2. Arundel Parrott now 2-2. And then Wayne Christian, big rivalry win over Cary Christian on Friday night, 46-22. Now, this upcoming Friday night, a couple big games. Lawrence Academy, Pungo Christian. Lawrence at 2-2, Pungo at 3-1. Faith Christian, Father Capodanno. Faith at 2-1, Capodanno at 1-3. Cary Christian at 2-3. They are getting ready to head to Arundel Parrott, who is 2-2. Big matchup there in the NCISAA. St. David's is 3-0, and they are on the road at Rocky Mount Academy, who are 3-2. John Paul II Catholic, 3-1, on the road at Wayne Christian, who is 4-1. And then, let's see. That's it for NCISAA. Let's jump to the Heartland Conference. Let's see. Abundant Life. I want to talk about the scores from this past week real quick. Did not get a chance to mention those at the beginning of the show. Abundant Life, big rivalry win over Southwest Christian, 50-7. Unity Christian over Arkansas Christian, 52-0. Crossover Prep, they got a shutout win as well, 46-0 over Trinity Christian. Destiny Christian, 58-20 over Life Prep. And Cross Christian with a win over Claremore Christian, 22-16. Close game there. And then on Saturday, Cornerstone Family Saints, they were at the Cornerstone Spartans in Joplin, Missouri, and the Saints come away with the 40-6 win. Now let's talk about the games coming up this weekend. Life Christian taking on Olive High School. Life at 1-2, Olive at 3-0. On Friday, Sunrise Christian 3-0. They were at Destiny Christian, who is 3-1, and then Claremore Christian will take on Barnesdale High School. They're in Oklahoma. On Saturday, Cornerstone Spartans, they are taking on Billings High School. And a couple of 0-4 teams, Arkansas Christian and Trinity Christian. They're in the Heartland Conference. They get ready to match up on Saturday. So somebody's going to get their first win of the season in that game. We'll keep an eye on who that might be. Let's go to the Kansas Christian Athletic Association. This past Friday night, final score, Wichita Warriors 94, KC East Lions 44. Massive, massive game. Sunrise Christian 52, Marmaton Valley 6, Manhattan Eagles 60, and Veritas Christian got a Veritas Christian lost 60-0 to the Manhattan Eagles. Now, games coming up this weekend. Plattsburgh High School, they are taking on KC East Lions. Sunrise Christian at Destiny Christian, I mentioned that one. Wichita Warriors, they are at the Cornerstone Family Saints. Northland Christian, they are at the Manhattan Eagles. Northland coming in at 1-3. Eagles at 3-1. And then Veritas Christian and Life Prep, both winless. Veritas at 0-2, Life Prep at 0-3. I mentioned that Sunrise Christian Destiny Christian game. Sunrise 3-1, Destiny Christian or 3-0, Destiny Christian 3-1. So Sunrise still looking great after a big championship win last year. Let's go to Virginia. I want to talk about some of the games that happened there this past weekend. Brunswick Academy, they are 5-0 in the VISFL, Virginia Independent Schools Football League. They got a win over Southampton Academy 54-6. So Brunswick Academy 5-0. And then Rappahannock County. I hope I did not mispronounce that. 48-6 over Quantico. Chincoteague 40-0 over Massanutten Military Academy. And then I mentioned the Kinston Forest Blessed Sacrament game. On Saturday, Christ Church School 48, Greenbrier Christian 7, Virginia Episcopal School 24, Covenant 14, and then Broadwater Academy got a 42-0 win over Richmond Christian. Speaking of Richmond Christian, they are 2-2, and they are taking on Brunswick Academy this upcoming Thursday, who, if you'll remember, are 5-0, so a big, big matchup for them. Christ Church at 2-0, they are taking on Covenant at 2-2. Greenbrier Christian 0-3, they are hosting Chincoteague at 3-1. Massanutten Military Academy 0-4, taking on Rappahannock. And then Southampton Academy at 2-2, taking on Kinston Forest, who is 4-0. And so just to mention it, Kinston Forest at 4-0, Brunswick Academy at 5-0, and they will play on Thursday, October 12th. That'll be a huge matchup there in Virginia. And then Virginia Episcopal School 3-0, taking on Quantico 0-4, and Fuqua at 1-2, taking on Broadwater Academy. Those games happening on Saturday. All right, let's run through Georgia real quick. I know we're running over just a little bit on time, but I want to run through some of the games that happened this past weekend. Holy Spirit Prep 34, Westminster Schools of Augusta 31. Holy Spirit Prep now 4-1. Westminster Christian 42, Victory Baptist 12. And those games in the GIAA 8-man Region 1. So there's the GIAA or the GISA. I think it says GIAA now. There's the GIAA and then the GAPPS, GAPS. So this upcoming Friday night, Young Americans Christian, they are 5-0. And they are taking on Westminster Schools of Augusta at 3-1. Monsignor Donovan Catholic at 0-3. They are taking on Dominion Christian, who are 0-4. David Emanuel Academy 3-0. They are hosting either Westminster Schools of Augusta or Westminster Christian. A little unclear on that. Game possibly happening on Friday night. And then let's look at the GIAA Region 2 this past weekend. John Hancock Academy, 34-12 win over Crisp Academy. Vidalia Heritage Academy, 40. Covenant Academy, nothing. Games coming up this weekend in the GIAA Region 2. Crisp Academy, 2-3. They are at Covenant Academy, who is also 2-3. Westwood High School, they are 0-2, and they are at Sherwood Christian, who is also 5-0. So big season for the Eagles from Sherwood Christian. John Hancock Academy 4-1. They will take on Windsor Academy, who is 3-1. Windsor's only loss coming to Springwood School out of Alabama and the AISA. Let's look at gaps. They have 2 divisions as well. They have single A ball this past weekend. Praise Academy 46, Horizon Christian 8. Let's see. Peachtree Academy 8, Cross Point Christian 6. 8-6. Both touchdowns scored in the fourth quarter according to Max Preps. Trinity Christian School of Griffin 36, People's Baptist 12. Now the games coming up this weekend, Covington Academy 0-2. They are at Victory Baptist 1-3. And on Friday, Praise Academy 4-0. They are on the road at Notre Dame Academy. Trinity Christian School of Griffin at 3-1 on the road at Hearts Academy, who are 0-4. People's Baptist at 1-2. They are taking on Peachtree Academy at 2-2. Holy Ground Baptist 2-1. They are at Vidalia Heritage Academy, who is 3-0. And then one last division to run through. You have Gaps 2A. This past weekend on Thursday, well, doesn't have a game on Thursday. Young Americans Christian, I mentioned their win over Fidelis Christian, 52-6. Sherwood Christian got a 56-0 win over New Creation Christian. Central Christian Crusaders 44, Community Christian 20. Unity Christian, I mentioned the win over Lafayette 30-22. And then Johnson's Ferry Christian 54, Hearts Academy 6. And then I mentioned a couple of these games coming up this weekend. Young Americans and Westminster Schools of Augusta, Unity Christian. They are at Horizon Christian. And then let's see if there's any games I missed. Lafayette Christian, they are at Central Christian, who they are both 3-1. And then Young Americans Christian and Sherwood Christian, both 5-0. And let's see if they play. They do play each other October 6th in Albany, Georgia. So potential there. Both of them could be, let's see. Let's look at their schedules. Both of them could be 6-0 heading into that matchup between the two of them. Because Young Americans has one more game. It goes to Westminster Schools of Augusta. And then they have a bye week. Sherwood Christian, they are playing 2 more games before then. They play Westwood and then Vidalia Heritage. So could be a big matchup between Young Americans and Sherwood Christian. I think that's all the games that are coming up this weekend. A lot of good football to be played. A lot of unbeaten teams meeting each other still at this point of the season. And for some of these teams, they're going to stay unbeaten. And some of them, it just ain't going to go that well. But we'll find out how it goes this upcoming weekend, and then we'll talk about it next Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in to Extreme Talk presented by Complete Real Estate, where experience and integrity matter. Go catch a game this weekend. Go do some Max Preps quick scoring. Go contribute. Go catch a game. We'll see you next Sunday. See ya!